I'd be lost without them, Brian. I really would. But horses have allowed me to be in the top 1% in the world, and I'm just so very, very grateful for them, and I know that I'd be nothing without them. With how they allow themselves to go from that fearful and worried state to believing in a leader, there's no other animal in the world like them. And the next one would be less is more. Do as much as you need to and as little as you can get away with. So with young horses like...
Welcome everyone to episode 131 of the CEN Nutrition Podcast with your host Bryan today. And today I have another very special guest, and it is Australia's internationally renowned horseman, Guy McLean. How are you, Guy?
I'm going good, thanks, mate. Nice to hear from you.
And I think the last time you featured on our podcast was July last year. So we have a lot of updates and unpacking to do. And today's podcast will center around some questions from our CEN Users Group, but also showcase the events that you have featured in this year, particularly the Man from Snowy River Bush Festival, but then also promote the next 30th anniversary, which you'll be featuring again. Is that right?
That's right, mate. Yeah, I've performed at that wonderful event, I think, on 6 occasions before, and they enjoyed me this year as the man. I got to beat Jim Craig, and my good gelding Bucky got to beat Denny, and they said, well, you're going to have to do that again. And I said, I would love to. It is my favourite event in the world, that event. And we go to a lot of incredible shows, but a lot of the time they're trying to do the fireworks and the monster trucks and the motorbikes and the music and that kind of stuff. And it loses a little bit for me. And whereas Man from Snowy River Festival is just bushman skills and everyone like-minded about loving Australia. And like, if you wanted to get a real taste of Australia, the Man from Snowy River Festival, I think, will do it for you. It's the greatest festival I've ever been to. So
part of the festival is a reenactment of the story, is that right?
It is. Over the years, they get some incredible fellas that they call them the back runners, I think they call themselves, and they were fellas that used to run the horses out of the hills, and are not allowed to do that anymore, but I'm not sure whether they do or not. They are good fellas, and they come down and they run the wild horses, which are normally trail riding horses or stock horses, and this year we used the buck jump horses, the horses that are professional rodeo horses, and in the practice they were beautiful. They did what they were told, and they moved wherever they wanted, and then with the big crowd they just did whatever they wanted, and we really had to work, and it was the coolest thing. But they come in and they go to do the reenactment, and these fellas aren't actors. I mean, they're horsemen, and they're Brumby runners, and they're cattlemen, and so you get them to come down and say lines and that. They're not into that, so they're always out of place. And so every time that I've done it, I've basically just said, Clancy was supposed to look angry, or look happy at me, and Harrison was supposed to look angry at me, and that no one did, and so I just ad-lib it. But it's fun, but the running of the horses is real, and it's the first time I've done it at speed. Been in it. I've helped them turn them and that in my other things, but never actually run in it. And there is wombat holes, and it is steep. And then if your horse didn't listen to you, you could have got really hurt. So it was it's the greatest arena I've ever performed in front of, and it was on the side of a mountain, with rocks and holes, and it was just the best. I'll never forget it. To think that I get to do it again is really cool.
And the details of the next one in 2025, it's celebrating the 30 successful years of the Man from Snowy River and Australian bush heritage. And I look at the location, it's down in Victoria in Corryong.
That's right, in Corryong, yeah.
And with this year's one, was that between events? Were you down in Victoria as well?
We went down especially for Snowy River. We performed over in America and did a couple of events there, and then come home and went straight to Snowy. And we picked up, straight after that, we picked up the Adelaide Equestrian Festival and went over straight from Corryong to the Adelaide Equestrian Festival. It took us 2 days to get there, and then we went straight into performing, and then that was fantastic. We were in the same arena riding beside future Olympians, and that in the 3-day event classes. And then we come home and we were at Beef Week, which is every 3 years at Rockhampton, Rocky Beef Week, and got to be around some of the very best cattlemen within Australia. And it was just wonderful. And then we did Mullaney Show and Mount Larkham Show and just a few other events, and it was really great. And I'm just so proud of my horses. They're 1 minute they're on the side of the mountain, and the next minute they're in front of 5,000 people in a small arena, and then they're in amongst the jumps at the Adelaide Equestrian Festival, and then at Rocky we're in a a small yard and it rained a few days and they're working in a foot of mud and they just keep turning up, and I'm just so very proud of them.
Yeah, well, Guy, you have been very busy this year. That's huge. And I think when you were in the States earlier in the year, there was a update to a Bryan model for one of your horses.
Yeah, so we were in America at the start of the year, and we did Harrisburg, PA, which is a big show that I've done 13 years in a row. And then we went to Wichita, to Kansas, and we performed there. And then we come home and we did Snowy River and those other events. And then we had to go back, especially for Bryan Fest. And no one's ever accused me of being a great businessman. Like, flights are very expensive, and we only went over for one job. But when they say we want to honour your horse, one of the greatest horses, the greatest horse I've ever ridden in my life, Spin Abbey, he's an amazing animal. Of course I was going to do that. We had to go over and honour him. So we flew back especially for that and took the team there, and it was wonderful. It's a very different event, Bryan Fest. A lot of the people there, they're horse owners, but they don't own a real one. So they buy these Bryan models and they have them and they show them and they have sales for them. It's like a different world kind of thing. It's almost like a cosplay, but not quite, I suppose. But it was fantastic, and then a lot of them go on to be real horse people as well. There was a few riders there that had their horses turn into models too, and they said the very first horse they owned was a Bryan model many years ago. So that was really cool. And being an Australian stockman and saying, oh, yeah, you're going to have two of your horses turned into models, and then I'm thinking, oh, that's not for me. Well, I just couldn't be prouder. I couldn't be prouder, and I couldn't be happier, because the only thing I don't like about horses, it's the only thing I haven't liked about them since I started with them, is that they don't live long enough. I love everything about horses except for the fact that they don't live long enough. So those beautiful boys, I'm going to be around, I'm sure, longer than them, and I'm going to miss them dearly. But to have those dolls and to be able to remember being with them, it's going to be pretty special to me.
It's an absolute amazing tribute to them both. And speaking of Nugget as well, how is he doing back at home?
He's a special old devil. He's beautiful. He looks like he's got a big blaze. He's so old now. He's 30. That all the hairs on his face have turned white. But he still struts around. He's got a blanket on him all day because he gets a little bit of itch. But his top line's still there. Your products have just been amazing for him, and not only for him but for Emily and I. Like, Emily's nails and hair is beautiful from the collagen, and I sleep without pain. Which before I was on the collagen, I would wake up a couple of times screaming in the night like someone was stabbing knives into my legs, and I don't have that anymore because of your great product. And the reason that I'm on it is because it works for Nugget, and if it worked for Nugget, if it was good enough for that dear-old man, it was good enough for me. And I was mowing his paddock yesterday. He was strutting around. He's got a little bit of a gimp because we retired him at 10 because he had the early onset of arthritis, but sometimes he gets around not even lame. Yesterday he had a little bit of a gimp, but so does his owner. We're a good pair.
A match made, yeah, perfect match there. And I remember Emily a week or two ago, she messaged me and said, we need to get some more collagen. We're going back overseas, and that's where you are headed now. Is that right?
That's right. We're going back to America. We've got some big events there. We're going to connect up with some show jumping and hunter jumper events, and then we'll finish up the year in November over there at one of the world's biggest equine extravaganzas, so Equine Affair in Massachusetts. And I've done it about 4 or 5 times, but it's been just because of things that have happened with COVID and that. It's been about 6 or 7 years since I've been there, so I'm really excited to go back there. They're a wonderful audience. The biggest crowd they've had at that event has been 100,000 over 4 days, so it's going to be wonderful. I'll be sad not to be at Equitana with you all, but we'll be flying the flag for everyone in Australia at Equine Affair in Massachusetts.
No, that's fantastic. And I think you said earlier before the podcast, you're in that uncomfortable time where you're saying goodbye to your team here and then you're going back.
Yeah, I find it very hard. Em goes, are you okay? I said, no, I'm not. I said, I'm sitting in the plane. I don't feel good until I can put my hands on my horses or to ride them. So as soon as I get to Mount Pleasant, Texas, and I get to put my hands on my horses, I'll be happy. But right now I'm in this uncomfortable spot. I've just said goodbye to my beautiful horses here, and I haven't been able to say hello to my beautiful horses in the States. But give me a couple of days and we'll be back to it. But I think that's what it is too, is why I can do what I do is because I'm driven to it. I can't be without them. People have said to me, because I'm 49 this year, they go, when are you going to retire? And I go, well, I can't. It's be like saying I'll retire from doing what I do the same day I retire from breeding, because that's pretty much what it is for me. I have this drive put into me by God or whatever that I have to do it, and I don't feel right unless I do. And I think anyone who's great at something has that drive pushing them along, because if we felt comfortable doing less, we would do less, but we don't feel comfortable unless we do the very best we can.
You can tell in your voice the passion, and the horse as an animal is your lifeblood, and it does definitely show through with how you demonstrate the way you train them, but then the love that you have with them, even the way that you talk to them, as I see some videos online as well.
Mate, they don't care what we say to them, but they know what we feel about them, and our words do express that. But I'd be lost without them, Brian. I really would. I don't know if I could be like on my visa. It says that I'm in the top 1% in my industry within the world, and I don't know if there's any other industry that Guy McLean, could be in the top 1% of. So it wouldn't have made it as a sportsman. My body hasn't held out. I'm probably not handsome enough to be a catwalk model, and that. But horses have allowed me to be in the top 1% in the world, and I'm just so very, very grateful for them. And I know that I'd be nothing without them.
They're such an amazing animal, and as you said before, you can say all the words to them, but if you don't mean those words, they can definitely see right through that, and they will have that reflection of who you are. And I think our association with you, Guy, we can't thank you enough for your endorsement of our products, and it's been a very good partnership in terms of getting the exposure to your client base, and then also in our base, helping our clients understand their horses even better through your teachings or your events as well. And that does lead us into our CEN Users Group questions, and we thank everyone for taking the time to ask these questions to Guy, and some might be on the spot here, but I think we'll start with Sarah Grant's one. And she said, Guy, what would be your top 5 tips for young horse owners?
Now, when I read that, we're talking about young horse owners as in teenagers, or as in people who own young horses?
Yeah, might have to call Sarah and ask her to clarify, but maybe for young horse owners.
So people who own young horses,
I think they're young horses, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll do the same for both. For young horse owners, for people that are growing up, surround yourself with people, with like-minded people who have been there and done that. I mean, I can't help everybody, but I try and help my nephew. He wants to be a stockman and a horseman, and I'm helping him and trying to teach him things so he doesn't have to make the mistakes that I made. A lot of what I know is from pouring my heart into the horse world, and then making mistakes and then not doing the same thing over and over again until it becomes a habit. So if you are young, if that was the question for people who are young, be around good people. Don't try and do it yourself, and the way you know if someone is good is by the way horses look at them. Like we were speaking before, the way the horses follow you. I did some photos for my Horse Deals article yesterday, and Emily said she loves the way my young horses. I've got 2 2-year-olds that have only had a month's training, and they're with my 3-year-old and my 2 6-year-olds who travel with me. And she says they can't take their eyes off you. I love how they watch you. And I say, well, that's because I'm their leader and I look after them. I do everything for them, and I am like the lead horse in their mob. If you surround yourself with people that their horses look at them like that and look for them and see them as a leader, well, you can't go wrong. So if you're learning, surround yourself with good people. But then for those of you that have young horses, I have written down 5 topics, and I think the most important thing is safety first. You see some of these things online where people are getting hurt with horses. They're just doing silly things, and then the poor horse gets this awful stigma around them. The most dangerous recreational activity in the world is with horses, and they don't need to be that way. I mean, horses have the heart of a rabbit. They're timid. They're quite scared in the beginning, and we don't mind that with rabbits because we give him a little fight and he bounces away. But imagine if that rabbit was 600 kilograms, and that's what our horse is. So some people say they don't like the fact that horses are scared. I am so grateful for their fear that nature has in them, because without it, if they didn't have any fear, we wouldn't be able to educate them. Like if we raise our hand and we can move a horse away by pointing our finger at a body part, that's because of the natural fear that's in him. What we need to do as horsemen and women is take the fear away and leave the respect that's there. So when horses they become pushy or get into our space, it's because we've taken away that fear and we've also taken away the respect. So with all my young horses, I make sure that they respect me and understand me, but I don't ever want them to be so familiar with me that they start to ignore me. So I've got written here, safety first, no matter how small the task. Always put a holder on first and ask for calm compliance before blanketing, picking out feed and that kind of thing. Like a lot of people say, well, I got kicked because I pulled up the belly strap and my horse jumped forward and kicked me. Or I said, did you put a holder on them? And they go, oh, no, I didn't need to. He's my best horse. And they go, well, they're still horses. And as much as we love them and respect them, we all can make mistakes. So even on my best horses, I'll hold them, do a little bit of groundwork before I would to put their blanket on or off or pick up their feet. The next one would be less is more. Do as much as you need to and as little as you can get away with. So with young horses, like with young humans, familiarity can breed contempt. So we don't want our horses to be at 6 months of age or a year old, and that's what I would consider a young horse. They don't need to be our best friend. They need to see us as a leader. And just like with the young kids, I don't want anyone, if I had young kids of 4 or 5 years of age and a van pulled up and they opened up the van, I would want my kids to run away screaming. I wouldn't want them to climb in the van and go away with you. And all my 6-month-olds will come up within 6 feet of me and I can rub on their mums because they're all good mares, but they won't let me touch them and that until I start to do more education with them when they're older. And as a 6-month-old, when I do wean them, I teach them to lead, a little bit of groundwork. I will teach them to tie up and I will handle their feet enough to trim them. But I don't ever want to get to where if I slap my leg that they wouldn't move away from me. Some of the most dangerous things with horses is when people go to feed them and the horses, 4 or 5 horses, go to kicking at each other to chase away the other horse, and then the owner gets kicked or bitten because the horses, they're too strong. They're 600 kilos when they're fully grown. You know, we don't need to have them using their strength against us. So, but we don't want to do so much with them that they start to get so familiar with us that they just don't care anymore about us. You know, that when that fear is gone, then the respect is gone as well, like I mentioned before. And that's not saying that I want my horses to be fearful, but we need to be very, very grateful for the fear that nature puts in them to keep them safe. Because if they're not aware and alive and keeping thought of everything, then they're not going to be safe in their own right. I've got here, as small and as weak as the young horse is now, we must always remember that time will bring size and power, and whatever habits we allow to grow in their formative years will only strengthen as they physically mature. So we need to have high expectations when it comes to the manners that we allow them to show in our presence. So when you see those videos of people on the ground with foals in their lap or foals rearing up and putting their feet on their chest, that's fine if they stay at 40 or 50 kilograms, but we just got to remember that they'll want to do those things when they're 3 and 4 years of age. So I'm very aware with my foals to do very little with them, but what I do with them, I wouldn't allow them to nip me or to turn their bottom to me and kick out, because when they're 3 and 4 years of age, that sort of behaviour will get them in real trouble. And then I've got another one here with young horses, like with young humans, the more exuberant, quirky, and sometimes unruly youngsters, myself included, often grow up to be the most driven and dedicated adult versions of themselves, but only when due diligence is shown by those who are there to lead them. So if you came around and looked at my foals and you looked at the one that was quiet and wanted to be around you, and then the ones that wanted to be fearful and away, and you raise your hand and they dive away, a lot of people would choose the one that was less exuberant. I love those feely ones. I love those. I've got a gelding at the moment called Eclipse. And a month ago, I didn't know if I was going to get him rode. He was that lively and that fearful of everything. And then 3 days ago, I laid him down and side passed 3 horses over him at a performance at my family's resort. And he's just amazing. Within 1 month, he allowed himself to change his mind from being fearful to being calm and compliant and happy around me. And I'm just so very proud of him. But the horses that start off and they sort of don't care, they don't care about anything. They don't care about anything in good either. So I love those fairly lively ones. They're my favourite. And my best horse, Spin Abbey, was like a deer when I first handled him. You'd see a a leaf rustle in the grass and he would gallop away from it, and now he's travelled all over the world and done amazing things. And the last one I've got is let them be horses first. A lot of horse owners, myself included, are in this industry for our pure love of the horse, and yet we need to be aware to not overdo our involvement with them in the early stages. So, and once again, the online stuff is great, and it's also awful. There's people say we need to handle them as babies. If we do too much with them, then they get sent to us. And I spoke to a fellow horsemate, Bryan, today, and I asked him about the 5 tips, and he goes, well, if you're going to send them away to a break, teach them to lead, teach them to pick their feet up and load them on a float. Don't do anything else. The overhandled horses, the horses that are rubbed on and loved on too much, we find it quite difficult as trainers to create movement with them. Whereas if you have a young horse just taught to lead and have his feet pick up and can load him on a trailer, then we have a clean slate to work with. And myself, my best horse that I've ever owned were 2-year-olds before they ever had a hand on them. So Nugget was totally unhandled till he was 2 and ended up being the greatest horse I've ever worked with. Spin Abbey had probably 5 handles on him before I started him as a 3-year-old. So less is more. You want to do what you have to, but not too much, and allow them to be horses first. It's very important that they know who they are before we teach them who we need them to be for us. So I know that was very long-winded, but I hope that's helped a little.
I love so much how you comprehensively answered that question for Sarah, because there's some valuable information in there. And what I take from it as well is that you work with their physiology and their natural instinct as a flight animal. So you're not working against what nature intended for them. You're working with that, and that they've got the eyes are on the side of their head, not forward. So they're not a predator animal. They see us as that, and us to demonstrate ourselves as a leader to them is what I take.
And that's why we mustn't growl at them. That's why we mustn't add energy to anything. Whenever a horse does something wrong and someone growls at them, some people even bark at them, like they want them to be fearful. And they say you got to treat them like you're a dominant predator. The biggest fear in their life is a predator. The biggest fear in everything we do is I want to win a ribbon, or I want to do it because I get Facebook friends, or whatever we do, I do it for applause, because the more I get clapped, I make enough money to keep them and look after them. A horse waking up today going, geez, I hope I live till tomorrow. I just hope I get through this today. I'm sure that's going to kill me. So when I think of their needs and the fact that in most things as a young horse, they're going, just I hope I don't die. You imagine working with someone that was like that. I mean, I don't ever go through life. I can't think of a day where I woke up and said, oh, I hope I don't die today. I never even think like that. I never feel like I'm in danger. And even though we all are, to some degree, anything can happen. I never ever fear for my life. Well, these darling, wonderful horses do. And so we have to prove to them that even though we do have our eyes at the front, even though most of us do smell like predators because we eat meat, that we're not going to treat them that way. And they are the most incredible animal in the world, mate. I mean, they say that dogs are a man's best friend. I love dogs. Dogs are fantastic. But you can work with a dog for 6 years and do whatever you want with him and train him and have him sort of like he's your best mate, and the poor little fella will hear gunshot or fireworks and run away, and you never see him again. And you can teach a horse that's never been handled before. I've worked with young horses that have never been handled, and I could work them and teach them to handle the fireworks in one session. Like how they allow themselves to go from that fearful and worried state to believing in a leader. There's no other animal in the world like them. And I not only do I understand their fear and the things that they feel, I applaud it. And I know for a fact that they call the hippopotamus the water horse. Well, everyone knows the hippopotamus is probably one of the most dangerous animals in the world because they show no fear. So you imagine if a horse was like that and showed no fear, it would be just as dangerous as the hippopotamus. So I'm so grateful for them, and I just proved to them that you do not have to show fear in my presence. I will take care of you.
When you say you have that understanding of their mind, or the understanding of where they're coming from, and you align your mindset to them, it actually helps in what job or training that they need to do. But as you said, do not push them too hard too soon as that young horse.
Absolutely. And that's totally right. But also some people can do the other thing. Some people can do too little for too long. And you say to every kid I've spoken to, I can't remember one child that I've asked this question, what have you learned at school today? All the kids say, oh, nothing. I don't know.
Yeah.
They can't tell you what they've learned because it's just, and I'm not picking on anybody. It's just they always come, I don't know. They can't remember. And if you really push on them, then they might be able to tell you. My beautiful daughter, April, is now 22 and a full-time nurse. She used to say, Dad, school's boring for me. I'm not enjoying it. She was in a small school in Cloncurry. And then she comes home to me, she lives with her mum. She come home and she spoke to me on the phone and said, Dad, the teacher let me teach a class today, and she's like 9. She let me teach a class. It was the greatest thing ever, and she told me all the things she got to share and that. And because the teacher saw something in her and didn't try to keep her in the same box as the other kids, but instead allowed her to step up and to be a better version of herself, she felt real worth in that. So when I look at my team of horses, I'm building a team right now here in Australia of 5 young horses. I say to everyone, and not one of you are more important than the others, but I still see you. I see you different from your brother, and I see you different from your other brother over there because they're all related. I see greatness in every single one of you, but as a team, we need to work together. But I still see them for who they are, and I don't expect them to be someone else. And I think that's really important is if I'm performing and people are drinking, or if I've been in some shows where I've just gone on the motorbikes and they wish there was more motorbikes and not horses, I'd rather not be there because I don't feel seen. But if someone really sees me and hears what I'm saying, I'll spend all day sharing what I know with them, because to be seen and to be truly heard makes us feel important as human beings. I believe in my heart that when a horse feels that he's being truly seen, I had an incredible mare called Showgirl. I've still got her. She's the mare I rode on Australia's Got Talent. She went through 5 different owners before I got her, and they all thought she was crazy. When I work with her, she says, you see me, you're not treating me the same as them. And I said, Dylan, well, I'm not going to blame you for the past, but you can't blame me either. I'm going to treat you differently now, and we're going to go on to great things together. And that mare has been a superstar. She won the Westpac Bank Star of the Year for the stock horses in 2017. It's because I saw something in her, and I treated her as different. Everyone else was trying to get her to fit in the box, and that mare, she busts the box open, and I love her for that. I love her for her differences. And I think that if we can see every horse as being important in their own right, and every human as being important in their own right, and if we truly feel seen and heard, we'd all be better because we'd know that people are getting something out of us.
Yeah, and there's also a loose crossover in terms of, for us at CEN Nutrition, when we do a diet analysis or a diet consult for a horse owner, it's about looking at the individual horse and not looking at your friend's horse or trying to compare that horse to others, and recognizing their strengths and weaknesses in how they hold their condition and nutrition-wise. And they should all be treated as individuals. You should try and understand your horse the most by spending a lot of time with them, getting to understand their differences, and, as you said, recognize their strengths and lean into that, but not be too forceful, and just explore their natural ability.
Absolutely. And there's times where we need to set back, and there's times where we need to push forward. Like anyone, it's so funny when some people, we see with horses, when a horse sweats, we say it's bad that a horse sweats. The greatest athletes in the world sweat in the warm-up, just doing stretches. My best spin Abbey will break a sweat just before I go into the arena. It's like the body is prepping himself for the work, because when we sweat, we're actually cooler. There is times to do less and there's times to do more. The greatest athletes at the Olympics, they didn't get there by not pushing themselves to the limit, but they were never pushed past the limit, and the coach knew when to withdraw and they knew when to push. And that's what about being a leader is saying, you may not have been ready yesterday to do what I asked today, but today I see that you're ready and I believe in you. And when someone believes in you, that means a lot. I believe in CEN as a product. You believe in me as a horseman. And when the things that we're talking about is not things that I say because I met you, or things that you say because you met us. We're like-minded individuals that have come together because we see the same things. That we're all important in our own right. And when we can join together with like-minded people and have horses, like I've had some horses that could do great things, but it wasn't in their heart to do it. I let them find another job. One of the great mare I was going to take to America is now a kid's horse for my niece at the homestead, and she takes 3-year-olds on rides every day, and those 3-year-olds think she's the greatest horse ever, and I could have made her be world famous, but she didn't have the heart to do it. So the horses that have the heart to do it, like Dreaming of Abby and Showgirl and Spin Abby and Nugget, those ones I say, well, let's go and be famous together. And the other ones, we try and find a space for them. There's a place for all of us in this world if we look hard enough.
Yeah, that's well said, Guy. And I think that can lead us into the next question from Taya Starr, who, keeping on the young horse theme, is there any chance you could ask Guy how to teach a young horse to give space on the ground and not walk on top of you?
Wonderful. Yeah, that's a great question. It goes back to the 5 points that I started with. I've got a gorgeous little filly down the paddock now out of Bridie, so she's a full sister to Howie and to Bucky, my two, one Performance Star and one that's coming up, and she's a gorgeous little mare, and she'll let me get within 6 feet of her, but I can't touch her yet. And that natural instinct in her gives that 6 foot bubble that even if I wanted to, I could sneak up to her. And then I would start to take that bubble and make it smaller. And if I spent enough time around with her and I waited, eventually she would allow me to get through that bubble. And then she would start to put her face on me, and she would start to say, "You're not as strong as me, you're not as fast as me." And then they can start to when they realise just how weak we are in comparison to them. If a horse ever really finds it out, then we're in real trouble. So the fact that she is so light and so feeling now, I say, I love you for who you are, darling girl, and I love all my foals from about 6 feet away. And my heart's open to them all the time, and I'm cuddling them without touching them, because when we start loving on them and handling them too much and we ruin that bubble, then we have to go and recreate it in the early stages. So what I would do with that horse is around feed time or anything. I mean, none of the horses that I have at home, and we've got 24 at home, if I walk in, I can get within 6 feet of them. And if I make my body soft, I can walk up and put my hands on all my good ones. But my baby would always keep that bubble away. Once we've trained them and we educate them to handle them and to ride them, we can walk into that space. But you need to recreate it with that horse. So what I would do is I would get the end of my lead, so a 6 foot lead, and I would whirl it over my head or just over my head, and I would walk towards them in the pasture, and I would whirl it. And if it bumped into them, as long as I'm not reaching for them, I'm not trying to hit them with it, but I'm just whirling it just like a helicopter. If that bumps into them, about 6 foot away from them, that'll start to rebuild that bubble there. And a lot of people say, well, I wouldn't want to do that because then I can't catch them or I can't handle them. I would much rather you have trouble to catch a young horse, and then when you put the lead on him, that they have that natural bubble, and if you step towards them, they naturally move away, than one that lets you catch them or comes up and gets in your space, so it's easy to catch them, and then they just push all over the top of you and give you trouble. So can you see what I'm trying to say, Brian? If you've got that lead swinging around your head, it's like a ceiling fan. If the ceiling fan is turned off, and you reach up and you've got your hand on it because you go, oh, that's nice, I'm just going to rub on that ceiling fan. If the ceiling fan turned on, you would go, that ceiling fan hit me and did the wrong thing. But if it was already whirling and you stuck your hand up in it, all your friends would say, you're an idiot. Couldn't you see it swinging? You shouldn't have put your hand up in there. So by walking into the yard, whirling the rope around your head, it's like a young horse coming in or a dominant horse coming in with exuberance and lifted up and posturing to move that horse away. And if you did that and that rein hit them once or twice, that would start to build that bubble again. And then when we have them on the end of the lead and they start to push on us, a lot of people, when a horse pushes, their first natural instinct is to push back. And just think about it. She's probably a darling girl, probably weighs about 75 kilos, pushing on a horse. It might be 300 or 400 or up to 500 or 600 kilograms. We don't ever want to use physical strength in pressure against a horse. So the whirling of the rope is like the posturing they do in the pasture. But once they're on the end of the lead, if the horse was to push on me, what I'll actually do is step out of their way, let them go past me, and then once their feet are in the right position, so as if when their inside front foot is off the ground, that would be the time to pick up on the lead. When the horse's hoof is on the ground, we're trying to move the whole body weight. But if he can pick that leg up, and when that leg is in the air, that would be the time to pick up on the lead. But we need to rebuild that natural bubble that they have as babies, and I don't have to build that into any of my horses. None of my young horses will come into my personal space, and I take the fear away so that I can move into theirs, but they'll never come and approach on mine. I was working with my 5-horse Liberty team yesterday, and they're following me around all behind me like they're on a skateboard following around behind me. in a line of 5, and I stop and I back up and they move backwards and forwards. I didn't have to teach that. That was already put in them by nature. I just didn't take it out of them. But sadly, with this horse here, that bubble has been broken, so it needs to be rebuilt. So by being able to whirl that rope and move them around until to where we can step in and move them away from us, because when they're on the end of the lead too, we go to move them, and a lot of the time we don't release them enough, so the horse is feeling stuck on us. So when they're free and we can move them around, with my horses in the past, if I've got one that's kicking out at the others around feed time, I'll just whirl a rope and I'll move them all together away from the feed, and then I'll step out of there and let them come back again. So just by doing what other horses would do, by saying if you're bad behaviour, you need to go and move your feet away, and whoever's feet is moving is being taught, and whoever's moving the feet is teaching. I hope that's made some sense.
No, that's definitely made a lot of sense, and it's well explained, and I think Taya will be able to take that all on board. And so the next question we have is from Sally O'Shea. What is the best way to get contact and collection while still keeping softness and not forcing the horse?
Wonderful. That's a great question. So I want you to think about the physicalities of the horse. And obviously we can't do it because we're not big enough. But you imagine if we were big enough that we could get the palm of our hand and put it underneath the horse's belly. And if we could lift that belly up, the horse would make a lovely shape over the top of our hand. His hips would be lower, his head and neck would be lower, and he would have that raised belly that we all like to have when we ride. The only way that we can get a horse to really raise his belly, people talk about using your spurs to lift a horse's rib cage up. You can't really do that. You're just lifting him up into your feet. You're not really changing the shape. But the inside hind foot, if you can get that to drive deeper, and a lot of people like to work on collection by using 2 feet to drive the horse forward. If your horse is really listening to both legs, your left leg should be controlling the left hind, your right leg should be controlling the right hind. And on most horses, if you squeeze them, they'll work with individual hind feet, but they'll bring them up. The horses that really listen to you, like Spin Abbey, if you can't ride him and you put both calves on him, he'll can him in place. He'll bring both hind feet together and he'll just pop up and down like a tennis ball on the spot. If you squeeze him hard, I think, and that will make him go forward, he'll leap 3 feet in the air, and he's now made that as part of what he does all around the world, and people say he's the most incredible individual ever. But that's just from doing that 2-leg squeeze that a lot of people do for collection. If I want him to go forward into the soft feel, I'll use my inside leg to drive the inside hind foot deep enough that the belly raises up, and then we create that shape over the top of his back. And I want you to know that true collection is never from the hand to the shoulder, it's from the tail through to the nose. And all the top dressage riders who all talk of collection, they talk about pushing a horse into collection more than pulling him into collection. So they will set their hands to where they would like the horse's nose to be at the vertical, but then they drive the tail to the bridle. There's no pressure coming from the hand back to them. It's not, you don't want to be backing them as far as the horse sinking backwards. You kind of want to be able to ride them to a wall, to where they put their nose on the wall, and then they go to vertical, and then you're pushing the wall along with their face, and that's all coming from that inside hind foot driving deep, sideways. Anytime the hind end is doing more than the front end, you're teaching that hind foot to step so deep that the belly's raised up. And all my good horses, I ride them with a bridle and saddle, but then I'll put my rein around their neck and they'll all go collected without the bridle because of the control of that inside hind foot driving so deep that the belly raises up, and when the belly raises up, we create that lovely shape across the back.
It's fantastic advice, Guy, and we thank you so much for your time in this, but we do have one more, and it's from Maddie, and she has said, how do you motivate a lazy horse to go forward?
That's a great question, a really good question. And the thing with horses, and I will end up doing an article on this for Horse Tales when I write for them, is because a lot of people, they've either got one of 2 problems. How do you slow down the fast horse, or how do you to speed up the lazy horse that doesn't want to go? A horse is saying with everything they do, how do I get back to the pasture? How do I get back to being with my friends? And the very best trainers work them to say, well, you do this, this, and this, and you'll be back to your pasture earlier, and you'll get things this way. So horses are saying, well, what's the last thing I did yesterday that got my saddle off, got me back in my pasture with my friends? So I've got a horse in America, I should say, called Mate. He's a grandson of Highbrow Cat. He's the horse that I won the Road to the Horse on in 2013, and he's got a very small motor. God love him. He's got a beautiful big quarter horse hip, and he's nearly as round as he is tall, but he's got a pretty small motor. And when I first started working with him, I basically had to ride him like a racehorse. And you think about what they do with racehorses is they feed them high octane food. They lock them up for nearly 24 hours a day, and then they take them for 15 minutes out, and they ride them until their energy's up, and then they get off them before they're tired. So you think about the opposite with an Arab horse, with an endurance horse. They would ride him for long periods of time, and they want to keep his heart rate down, and they want him to be able to get fitter and longer, and they don't finish the day till later. Well, with a horse that you want to bring down, like with Spin Abbey, if I only ride him for 5 minutes and get off of him, every day he creates more and more energy for that ride. But if every now and then I'll give him an hour's ride, and I'll wait until his energy levels are lower. And if I get off him and put him away when his energy levels are lower, he'll bring me that tomorrow, hoping that he'll get to go back to his pasture. So with those lazy horses that don't want to go, we need to get on and ask for short, sharp sessions to where we get as much out of them as we can, and then we get off them before they start to act a doughy and light again. So with that Mate, I would get on him, and I would send my Liberty horses out in front of him. And having horses in front of him, and you can simulate this by having one of your friends trot off on the horse in front, and you go and you canter up to them, or chasing a cow or doing something. Especially the cow-bred horses, they don't really want to do anything unless it's for a reason. So all my horses have got some of the very best heritage stock horse bloodline. And if I want them to canter a circle, if I can get my horse in front, my Liberty horse to canter a circle in front, I can canter perfect circles on the first ride. If I didn't have the horse out in front of them, they'd be griping with me and not wanting to go forward. It's once again, it's understanding the desires that they have. So with those horses, if you can get someone to be in front of you so the horse has a reason to go, and then you get off them before they're tired. And you might do that for 2 or 3 sessions a day, like climb on for 5 minutes and go with that Mate. I'd get on him and I would gallop him in a big circle for 2 laps, and then I'd get off of him and I'd wash him and put him away, and he'd say, "You put me away before I got tired." And then the next day, I did this for 3 days in a row, and on the third day he felt like a racehorse. All he wanted to do was to gallop. So then I just rode him like I would with the racehorse. I rode him until he started to come down, and I put him in that middle line of where I wanted him. So before, he was right behind the leg, which means I'd ask for stuff and he'd always be wanting to do less. And then I got him in front of the leg, and then by the end of that first week, I was able to side pass and turn around, which I couldn't do any of that before I taught him to go forward. So the racehorses, you think about their life, they get on and they ask for short, sharp bursts of energy, and they get off them before they're tired. If you do that with the lazy horse for 2 or 3 days, you'll start to act more like the racehorse, because he says, "You don't get off me until my energy levels are up." But you just don't ride them until they become so low that they go, "Well, when I act really quiet, you get off me. When I act really excited, you get off me." Whatever you want that horse to be, that's where you need to climb off them to where they start to bring that to you every day.
That's fantastic advice, Guy. And I hope our listeners have taken something from this podcast, because it's so valuable, the insight you give and the experience, and from the experience you have had. And I'm so grateful for your time today in sharing your knowledge.
Bryan, what I want you to know, thank you so much. That's very kind of you. All that was taught to me from horses. I could go back and I could tell you everything that I know about horses, the individual horse that I picked it up from. And so if you really want to learn, go and spend time with your horses. They know more about horses and about horsemanship than you and I will when we die, because it is generational for them. They are born knowing more about a horse than we ever will. So they are not only our very best students, but our very best teachers. And I just want to thank you for your time, mate. I appreciate you, and I wish your listeners all the very best. And the best advice I can give anyone is remember the joy and the love and the passion that you had when you first met horses, and bring that to them every day. And whilst you have that, that is the most valuable gift for the horse to see that how much you care about him and how important they are to us.
That's so good, Guy. I really love talking with you. You give me inspiration in all walks of life, in terms of not just understanding the horse better, but just as a prime example of following your passion and finding your place in life is so very important. And I think, do you fly off tomorrow? Is that right?
Well, we fly out on Friday, so we're going to go and spend a couple of days with Em's mum. I've got a couple of horses to help her with, and then we'll head off and be in the air on Friday evening. We'll be flying back, and I'll have my hands on my horses 24 hours later. And people say, how can you love your horses so much and fly away from them? And I said, well, I can't share them with the world unless I go to the world. And I said, I pray to God every day that He'll look after the horses. We have good people who look after them while we're gone, and I pray that He'll take care of them, and I just can't wait to keep sharing them with everybody. And my beautiful horses, they wave to me as I go and say, take care, Dad, we'll see you when you get back. As long as the great thing about horses, as long as they have feed and water and friends, they're happy, whereas I can't have a good dog with me because they get so attached to you that you can't leave them. They'll actually pine, or my horses don't pine for me, just as long as they get the same feed and love and care that they had. And they're just allowed to be horses with their mates. That's what's important to them. But when you talk about passion, my beautiful daughter, I hope that she would be a horsewoman. Of course, every dad would love to see their kids follow in their footsteps. And when she told me she wanted to be a nurse, I said, darling, because I couldn't imagine dealing with sick people every day. I think that would be a very hard life. They're not happy. They're sad. A lot of people want to get out there. Hospitals aren't a nice place. And I said, darling, I wish you were chasing your passion. She says, Dad, I love it. She said, I love taking care of people. It brings me joy, and I'm so excited to be able to learn more. And that's all I ever wanted for her, was to follow her passion. And it comes in all shapes and different sizes. And even though I told her for many years that the things I was teaching her with horses would help her be better at what she was doing, she couldn't get it. Now she says, Dad, I had a patient the other day who was just like Techno, which is a wonderful gelding she learned to ride on. She said, I did the same kinds of things, and I used his mind, and we did reverse psychology with him like you do with the horses, and it worked great, Dad. So she's seeing how the lessons in horsemanship actually helped her be a better nurse.
That's fantastic. And I think as a father of two young children, the advice I have been given by many is just give them the most exposure and see what they like doing, and they'll land on their passion. Don't force it, because everyone is different. And yeah, that's fantastic. There's that whole crossover into her nursing career from horses.
It's beautiful, and all you want when we all ask kids what they want to be when they grow up. And when a kid just says, "I want to be happy," well, that'd be nice for all of us if we can find our joy. Thank you so much for your time today, mate. I know you're busy, but we look forward to talking to you again soon.
Yeah, and on behalf of the whole CEN team, we wish you and Emily and both your horse teams here and overseas a safe trip for you and Emily over there, and we'll definitely catch up again. We can't thank you enough for all your time as well, Guy, and we just thank you for all your support and alignment with our products as well. So thanks once again.
We appreciate you, mate. Thanks you, and all the best to you and the CEN team. See you.
Thanks, mate. Thank you.